Welcome to the ADP Average Dudes podcast with your average dude host, Tanner Ward and Matt Mormann.
Hello.
We are back. It's both of us together in one show for the first time in season. We're not doing solo episodes. We are actually back together. Today, we're looking at the running back landscape because it seems like every single person's hurt. We have some early emerging league winners. We're going to take a look at a couple of those. And of course, we got to see who's busting so far. Who are the busts? And then look at, kind of the top quarterbacks paying up for quarterbacks this year. How's that strategy working out? And then we're going to look at some players that we, seems like so far we're right on and wrong on from the preseason now through 2 weeks. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it now. I still call it Twitter. But follow us on Twitter at ADP Dudes, letters ADP Dudes, and the YouTube page. Just search ADP Dudes in the search bar. The YouTube page is at Average Dudes Podcast. But definitely make sure you follow us on Twitter because we are going to post every time we release a new episode. We'll kind of go through. I mean, we're doing weekly stuff. Matt, you're putting out a midweek show. You're kind of focusing on, though. Tell the people what your show is going to focus on.
So most of mine have been kind of the what just happened side of things for the most part. I did not get around to it this past week, unfortunately. Yeah. Life and job got in the way on that, but I posted the weekly, the waiver show. I will make sure to always make that one a priority for you guys so you know who to add to your teams each week, kind of what happened on Sunday that you need to be paying attention to add players. Also, I'm going to try every week to do a what to watch for, where I kind of look at each game and break down like one storyline from the game and kind of what to keep an eye on with that. And then also, I feel like, if I can or if I'm able to, there'll kind of be one random show in there. One that I am kind of workshopping in my head at the moment to try to record tomorrow potentially is so you lost your running back. Now what do you do?
And that's definitely going to be a weekly segment at this point.
Unfortunately, it's looking that way, right? But yeah. Just some advice on far as like, how do you approach this? Do you trade that wide receiver 2 for what is now a running back to used to be a flex guy? Do you just go pick up other teams' handcuffs and try to go that way? Tajay Spears is a player that I'm picking up a lot of right now, just in the maybe this week it's Derrick Henry who gets hurt because every running back could just get hurt each game apparently. So that kind of a thing. I'm kind of working up in that in my head. So hopefully you guys will be getting that one later this week. That might be a next week thing though.
Yeah, and like I said, the biggest thing is just make sure you're following us on X because we will post every time we have a new episode out. So Matt's going to always have the waiver show. He's going to have a lot of reaction shows for you. I'm going to have your preview show every week as well. So the goal is Friday morning. That's already been out. So I'm trying to do it on Thursdays. So it's out on by Friday morning. It's kind of a tricky one. I'm not going to do it before the Thursday night games. I may record it like that afternoon before the game, but I'm not going to touch on the Thursday night games. So if you have any start sit questions with the Thursday night football game, just tweet us or X us, whatever. I don't know. I don't know what's called. Just tweet us.
Throw up the X.
Yeah. Send out the bat signal and just send that to us there. And
if only Des Bryant. If only Des Bryant was still playing during the X era, then he could. There could be some good branding there.
There could be some good branding or a lawsuit. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Make Des Bryant a little extra cash there.
Yeah, but I'm gonna try and do it when I can have the 2 days worth of practice reports to try and get you guys the best info. But that should be out on Fridays, and I'm gonna go game by game. If you haven't listened to one yet, I go through every single game on Sunday and Monday night, what my thoughts are on the game itself, and then pretty much every relevant player, I will at least mention their name and kind of see where they're at. So your starts, your sits, and just kind of see where guys are at, who I like better than others. Do I think they're flexible? Do I think they're wide receiver 3? So on and so forth. So make sure you're checking out all of our stuff.
Self-indulgently, it's one of my favorite shows out there at the moment. Is the Tanner Ward start, because it literally is. You go through every single game, every player in your rankings, and you kind of put that number with it, and people kind of go from there. Be like, hey, do I start Jaylen Warren or Tyler Algier this week? And your answer to both should hopefully be no, but unfortunately, because of where we're at with running backs, the answer might be yes.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with the show last week. I don't know if anyone else laughed at anything, but I cracked myself up about 3 or 4 times in that show with one of my favorites was my new name for Jamal Williams, the leader of the Plotter Pack. I think it's so fitting for him. So I'm gonna miss him at Lambeau this Sunday. I was kind of looking forward to him being back, but I don't know. Hopefully, you see a little Kindred Miller out there.
Hopefully, because Lord knows, running back owners need every help that they can get right now.
Yeah, and that was an unintentional segue to the running back landscape, which is our first topic today. It's just a barren wasteland. Like it looks like a scene in Mad Max now, where it's just barren. Upcoming, we have Colts Ravens this week. JK and JT. No. You're getting Zach Moss and some combination of Gus Bus, Justice Hill, and this could be the Melvin Gordon week. We'll never know.
This isn't the I don't think there is a Melvin Gordon week.
It could be it'll be when we least expect it.
I don't think it's going to happen. I think it'll be Gus and Hill. But yeah, unfortunately, J.K. Dobbins got snapped away. Nick Chubb also gone for the season. Cam Akers, we do have some news there if we want to touch on the running back news here first. So Cam Akers traded from the LA Rams to the Minnesota Vikings. And then we'll also touch on the Kareem Hunt signing in Cleveland to replace Nick Chubb potentially. Let's talk Akers first. Tanner, which Minnesota Vikings running back would you rather have on your team right now? Cam Akers or Alexander Mattison?
Honestly, I honestly, I'm not sure which one, because it's like, do you stick with Madison, the guy you know in Minnesota, or you take the new guy, Akers, who you also know is not that good? Obviously, O'Connell's had both because he was in LA. So he's seen Akers up close and personal. It's the reason he traded for him. It's not like they really gave anything up for Akers, so it's not like they're really invested in him. So this could be a hot hand approach where, like, but both backs are like the cold ends of a hot pocket. Like neither one of them's going to be the middle. So I really don't know the answer to that right now.
I'm really bummed out about this trade for Alexander Mattison. He is a guy who, in many leagues where I am as desperate as everybody else is for running backs, I was sending out some offers for him earlier this week, and good thing none of them got accepted, because I look at this upcoming schedule. You got the Chargers at Carolina, home KC at Chicago. These next 4 weeks, there was a real opportunity that Alexander Mattison was going to be able to turn things around. He faced 2 tough run defenses in weeks 1 and 2. I don't think it's necessarily Alexander Madison's fault that he was terrible for 2 weeks. It could be, and that could very well still be the case. I think, look, there's a couple of teams where I'm hurting for certain at running back. I think you can probably swing a very, very dirt cheap Alexander Mattison trade, and even if he's just a 1-week play for you, with the way that running backs are right now, that might be all you need. Maybe you have a Saquon Barkley, or you lost an Austin Eckler, or you lost a David Montgomery. I think Madison can at least give you bridge value to get to those guys. Versus Cam Akers, I don't think he's going to give you anything this week because, new team midweek, playbook, all that kind of stuff. I just don't see there being much of a role in the first week with the team. I never do. And so I think I could see a world where Alexander Mattison gives you that bridge to get to those guys if you're dealing with a Aaron Jones injury, right? Like there's like 8 guys where maybe you just need to get through a week or 2 of something to win a matchup. Versus Akers, I'm not sure he's ever going to be good. I was never a Cam Akers guy. I wasn't a Cam Akers guy when he was coming into the NFL. I wasn't a Cam Akers guy when he came back from the Achilles. I wasn't a Cam Akers guy when he had 6 good games at the end of last year. I don't think Cam Akers is all that impressive of a player, and I think that he fell out of favor twice with the coaching staff. He got benched for a rather unimpressive Kyron Williams, and he goes to a team that has an equally bad offensive line in Minnesota, and I don't think he's necessary. I don't think you can definitively sit here and say he's better than Alexander Mattison just running back to running back. And so I just think that Madison should still get the opportunity in week 3 and week 4. I don't know when Cam Akers gets his opportunity. Would you hold on to him if he has a bad 2 or 3 game stretch here with 6 carries over the next 3 weeks, or would you drop him at that point? So if it's me, if I'm sending a Josh Reynolds trade offer, I'm sending Josh Reynolds for Alexander Mattison.
I mean, Josh Reynolds definitely a name that's probably worth sending for Madison.
Yeah, and I wouldn't go much higher than that. That's kind of the guy that comes to mind. I'm not doing.
Yeah.
anything much more than that. But it's a extreme buy low opportunity. But you are buying low.
Yeah, Madison's one of those guys, I said it in the offseason. He gave me the Mike Davis vibes. And he's a player that so far I've been right on, where he wasn't worth the investment for where he was going. He's been a trap back. He's what we talked about, or what we've talked about every single year, the running back dead zone. He's kind of leading that charge this year of the RB dead zone guys. And yeah, I do think there's better days ahead for Madison, but man, if he struggles against a bad Chargers run defense,
oh, then it's totally over.
Then it's Akers,
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think Madison's just going to lose this job right away. But these guys, like Minnesota, doesn't have 70 rushing yards for the year.
Again, it was against Tampa and Philly. Tampa's been a very good run defense in recent years.
Right. But
Philly
we're talking
also,
70 yards for the year. I mean, the median yards per game last season was 120 rushing yards per game. Now, some of that's inflated because you're higher end teams, but then you also had the Bucks that got 80 yards a game last year, one of the worst run games we've seen in a long time. And they were averaging, like I said, I don't remember what it was, but it was more than 70. So, and that's 2 games I'm talking about. They haven't reached 70 total. So yeah, this run game's ran in some bad defenses, but I mean, there's good run defenses in the NFL. So it's just like, are you just not going to be able to even think about starting a Minnesota running back when they're facing a top 10, top 15 run defense? Like, do they have to have an extremely plus matchup to think about playing Madison?
I think that's the case. And that's the thing. I do think for the next 4 weeks they do, though, right? Again, Chargers, Carolina, KC, Chicago. That's a 4-game stretch where you can play him. After that, it gets more dicey. But for those 4 games, I think that there is a chance. And again, look around the running back landscape. Are you starting Alexander Madison against the Chargers, or are you starting Gus Edwards against the Colts? That's a real decision people have to make, right? Are you
in week 3? Yeah.
Right.
All right. Who would you rather roster right now? Cam Akers, or I'm just going to throw some names out there. Cam Akers or Damian Harris?
Cam Akers, I think, but yeah, that's an ugly one.
Cam or Dalvin Cook?
Cook.
Chuba?
Akers.
Charbs?
That's an easy one.
Okay. A-Chain? Spears? Okay. So you'd still rather take the lottery ticket rookie running back over Cam Akers. Justice Hill.
Sorry, what was that? I think I went out that time. Sorry, I'm at crappy hotel Wi-Fi, so I'm going to do my best to hang in here.
I just said you would rather have the lottery ticket rookie running backs over Akers right now.
Yes. Yeah.
And then
Kendrick for all those guys. Yep.
And then Justice Hill was my last one.
I think I might go Akers over Hill.
I think that's my one point where I'm thinking Akers. But yeah. Hingle McCringleberry.
Oh, definitely McCringleberry, because you can create some fun team names, opportunities. Yep. It's a good locker room guy to have for sure. So,
he's in my rankings this week. I'm putting in my top 64. This was I decided to rank 64 running backs per week here. Just for the aesthetics. I wanted receivers and running backs to be the same, and I couldn't stop at 60 receivers. I needed to go to 64. So now I'm in this pickle where I got to rank 64 running backs. And so I tweeted out, these are some of the guys I'm going to be ranking this year, and it was some of my favorites from that original Key and Peele skit. And so it's like, all right, well, I'm going to start ranking Hingle McCringleberry when I have a tough time, filling out my 64. And to make it matters even worse, after the Thursday night game, when I repost rankings for the Sunday slate, I take Thursday night out.
Oh, geez. So, yeah, you're running the bottom of the barrel then, at the back end of that for running backs, especially.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the other one. Let's talk about the Kareem Hunt news. So Nick Chubb goes down with the injury on Monday night, and Jerome Ford shows out a little bit. Pierre Strong, unfortunately, steals that touchdown from him, but Jerome Ford looked great. And that's a guy I talked about a lot this summer as really having an opportunity as a pure handcuff there, because Kareem Hunt was no longer on the team. Well, now Kareem Hunt is back on the team. joining the team as we head into week 3, though. So, Tanner, how are you feeling about Jerome Ford? Obviously, a lot of people spent a lot of fab on him.
Yeah. So this is kind of my thoughts on it. So going into or on Tuesday, everyone on Twitter is talking about how much they're going to spend on Jerome Ford, how he can be a true league winner. And just, you're going to have to spend 50+% of your fab in most leagues to get him. At the same time, there was already talks that Kareem Hunt was in discussions with the Browns before Tuesday was up. I was already seeing, Kareem Hunt is talking to the Browns already. We knew they were going to bring someone in. Like the chances of them bringing someone in, I would say was 80-20. Like instead of going with Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong, it was 80-20 they were going to bring someone in. And the most likely candidate was Kareem Hunt. So I just don't understand why Wednesday, when Hunt actually signs, now everyone thinks that fab on Jerome Ford is wasted. Because it's like we knew this was probably going to happen. And then when it actually happens, then everything I'm seeing on Twitter is, man, I'm glad I, didn't spend 70% fab on Jerome Ford. To me, nothing changed in the landscape. This is still, in my opinion, Jerome Ford's backfield. And I saw a beat reporter put that out today. It is, I believe it was Stefanski that said it, but I could be wrong. But it's Jerome Ford's backfield, and Kareem Hunt's brought in to be a change of pace back, right? He was brought in because he's already knows the system. He's familiar with the system. But as also a lot of smart people pointed on Twitter today, the Browns already made the decision between Hunt and Ford this offseason, right? Because Ford's still there. Now, take contract out of it. Obviously, Ford's going to be cheaper, but they still decided to have Jerome Ford and let Kareem Hunt walk. So I think they kind of know what Kareem Hunt is. He's not the same guy that was taking a lot of work away from Chubb in, God, what was that, 20 and 21?
Yeah, 2020 especially, when Chubb got hurt.
Yeah, and it's just like, this isn't the same Kareem Hunt. So to me, I am still comfortable. Luckily, like in my home league, I knew he wasn't going to go for a ton of fab because that's part of knowing your league. Like I knew in that league, no one ever spends 40-50% of their fab on a player this early anyways. So I got him for 31 or no, 26. I think I got him for 26 and I had the highest bid by $6, I think. So I'm pretty happy with that. But no, I was never going to pay over 50% for him anyways. But yeah, I don't think anything changed. So I don't really understand why this outcry all of a sudden when Kareem Hunt actually signs. I think Jerome Ford's still going to be the guy to own in Cleveland for your fantasy team.
So I basically mostly agree with you. I think for me, it did change just a little bit because it became real, right? If it was just him and Pierre Strong, I wasn't worried about at all. I never was.
No.
He's a special teams player. They did
trade for Pierre Strong.
He's a special teams guy, though. They traded for him as soon as their kick returner got injured in the preseason. That was why they did that move. And so I am more concerned about Kareem Hunt than I would have been if it was any other free agent running back, right? However, I am less concerned about Kareem Hunt than I would have been if the Browns traded for Cam Akers, right? Because at least Cam Akers is in NFL ready shape,
right?
Well, I'm sure Kareem Hunt's not too far off, but he is not in. I don't expect him to be a big part of the offense in this week. Now, the thing that I am worried about with Jerome Ford is the schedule. You got Tennessee, Baltimore, and then a bye, and then it's San Francisco.
Yeah, it's brutal.
What happens here if Jerome Ford looks bad over that 3-game stretch there? Does the team blame that on Jerome Ford, or do they look at the teams they are playing against and say that was the problem? If they say, well, he played bad, so it's his problem, we're going to go to Kareem Hunt now 5 weeks from now. I think that's a very realistic possibility that, Ford might get the bulk of the carries for the next 4 weeks, but they not go so well, and then he doesn't have the job when the juicy matchups roll around. That being said, I still think Ford was the absolute number one waiver claim. I think he was worth most of the fab that anybody spent on him. And I think he's a talented player. I think also he got 15 carries in week 1 when Nick Chubb was around. Kareem Hunt, look at last year, man. He did not get on the field very often with Nick Chubb around. They clearly do view him in a higher regard this season than they viewed Kareem Hunt a year ago.
Yeah, and one point I wanted to make, we talked about it over this offseason when Zeke was being talked about potentially going back to the Cowboys. And we said on the show, or I had said I would rather Zeke go back to the Cowboys than them to sign a Leonard Fournette or a Kareem Hunt, because the coaching staff knows what they have in the player they're bringing back, and they know this other guy is better on the roster. But if they bring in a new guy and they still think he's got gas left in the tank, then it could become a tougher split all of a sudden.
And that's where I would have been concerned about trade. I don't think that if they, let's use Fournette.
That's what I'm adding to your point. If they'd have brought in Fournette or traded for Akers, I'd be a little bit more concerned, because at that point, and I'm just throwing names out there. But if they're bringing in a different guy, and at that point, it's like, that tells me we need something else in this backfield.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, it's like, well, let's just bring in Hunt because he knows the playbook, and we can plug and play him where we need to spell Ford.
See, I don't think Fournette would have been the guy there for me, because I think in general, when a player is not on an NFL roster come week 1 of the NFL season, they probably don't belong on an NFL roster, right? Like,
right, and
if
that
this
also
was
fits
this
for Kareem Hunt.
It does.
I don't know who's a better back at this point.
I do think it's Hunt. I do, but I think there's a very good reason as to why he was never signed by anybody. I don't think it was just him being picky. I don't think you ever really see free agents last into the NFL season if they're still all that good. You know, I was texting you earlier. Only one I can think of was Antonio Brown, and there was a lot of extreme circumstances there, right? But think about when the Ravens signed Dez Bryant, right? That's kind of more of the ilk I feel like we tend to see when teams sign veterans who went the entire offseason unsigned. So I'm not that worried about Kareem Hunt. I do think in deeper leagues it's worth a stash. And look, quite frankly, it is worthwhile to have the handcuff on several teams right now. And the Cleveland Browns are definitely one of those teams. It's why I touted Jerome Ford for so long, is because this is a system, this is a team that's very good at running the ball. They've got an excellent offensive line, especially on the interior part of things. And so even if I'm just viewing Kareem Hunt as a handcuff to Jerome Ford, that instantly, I think, catapults him to being one of the highest handcuffs on the board.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, he's already been picked up in pretty much every league I'm in, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
He should be.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to spend too much time on this.
Real quick.
I don't want to go a whole hour here, so.
Let's just real quick rank the 4: Ford, Madison, Akers, and Hunt.
Ford, probably Madison second, just because their schedule's so nice right now, and then I'm going Hunt, and then I'm going Akers.
Same for me.
Yeah. If we flip the schedules, it would be Ford, large gap, Hunt, and then the Minnesota guys. Yeah. So pretty much to sum up the rest of the running back landscape, it's tough out there. Everyone's either underperforming or they're hurt at this point, unless you're Christian McCaffrey, right? I guess Tony Pollard had that great week 1. But, yeah, I mean, you're pretty much hurt or disappointing. You know, I think, was it Chuba Hubbard has almost as many points scored as Miles Sanders this year. It's just it's a tough time out there. And honestly, I don't think you can take a big victory lap with hero RB and zero RB, because you could have also not hit on the receivers you took early. Like, I had some leagues where I took Cup over Hill because I already had Hill over Cup. I wanted to diversify. That's just a problem of being in so many leagues. So I didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket. Man, I really wish I had put all my eggs in that basket of Hill over Cup.
What? That's one thing. I never diversify.
Yeah,
I don't. I never
just tried it this year. I just tried it this year, and I hate it. But you could have started Travis Kelce followed by Garrett Wilson. That's kind of a tough start for you right now.
Every strategy can work, and every strategy can blow up in your face.
Exactly. So I am still a big proponent of hero RB, in my opinion. But yeah, you still got to hit on the right guys. But yeah, running backs are tough. Don't be afraid to spend fab. Be aggressive with your fab on running backs. I've had a lot of success basically playing the entire year with my RB2 being these guys I pick up off waivers. Your Zach Mosses of the world, your Gus Edwards, Jerome Fords. I've basically had Mixon 1 year. Kyron, yeah. Basically, I had Mixon 1 year, and then, just plug and play all these guys. Khalil Herbert, because Montgomery missed time with the Bears. I think championship week I was playing Justin Jackson for the Chargers. To me, play the game, Let's rotate your RB2, and then definitely big takeaway: grab a handcuff with an open roster spot before primetime games, before Sunday night and Monday night games.
Yeah, because never know what's going to happen.
You never know.
Speaking of some of those running backs, we want to switch on over to some league winners here in the early portion of the season. And if we're buying them or not, let's do the running backs first. We want to talk about running backs. So I mentioned Kyren Williams there. We didn't talk about him with the Cam Akers trade, but now that Akers is fully out of the picture, it does look like it's Kyren Williams' backfield to lose. Yeah. I'm not excited about Kyren Williams. I've been selling him off in every league where I had him. I scooped him up after week 1. I actually had him before the season in one league. I think it's going to be a very inefficient role. Now he's going to get all the work, and hey, in this landscape, that means he's an RB2, right? I'm happily selling him off though in Dynasty for draft picks. I'm happily selling him for high-end flex wide receivers. I'm happily doing that. How are you feeling about Kyren Williams?
So do you know what I nicknamed Rachaad White this year? Uh-oh. I think you're frozen.
It was me.
Okay. Yeah.
Go.
Do you know what I nicknamed Rachaad White this year?
I do not.
Najee Light is what I've been calling him, because he gets all the work in that backfield and he does nothing with it, right? So Kyren is the Najee we all want, because he is getting all the work and he's being fantasy relevant. Like, he is getting you fantasy points just based on volume. He's not doing a lot with it. I think one of the funniest things about Kyren Williams is, I believe on Madden, at least last year's Madden, I don't know about the new Madden this year, his speed was like 84.
Oh, it's very low for a running back.
Which is just like so funny, because Madden gets a lot of stats wrong, but they're usually in the right ballpark with speed. It's just like Kyren was like an 84. So just the amount of volume. I mean, he ran 52 routes this past week, and he had 10 targets, if I remember that correctly. I believe he had 10 targets. Now, they were trailing all game to San Fran, so he's not going to get 10 targets every week. I'd like to know what they got against Seattle. I can probably look that up real quick. But, they're probably going to be in, some high scoring ball games this year. And I just think he's going to be, he had 10 targets. Oh no, I'm still on week 2. Sorry. Week 1, he had 2 targets, no catches week 1. He had 15 carries, but Cam Akers also had 22 carries in that game. So, I mean, when Sean McVay chooses a running back, that running back gets a lot of touches. So, I mean, I'm buying into him in redraft this year. If you have him, I'm playing him. Yeah, if I can upgrade at receiver, I'm upgrading at receiver. But yeah, I'm basically buying into Kyren this year for redraft. In Dynasty, sell him as fast as you can.
Yeah, like I said, I think he can just.
I don't think he's the guy beyond this year. So.
No, I don't either. I'm not even sure he's the guy for the entirety of this year. I think Zach Evans is maybe a guy to, in deep leagues, stash away.
Definitely a name to know.
A name to know and a name to keep an eye on if he's active. He doesn't do special teams. I think that might be part of why he's been inactive. But, we've seen that before with other handcuff running backs, where they become active and kind of become the guy potentially. So I think that, I don't know. I'm not a buyer on Kyren Williams' talent, and I think at some point inefficient running backs tend to get moved on from by the team. Just like they just did with Cam Akers.
Until they move to the rookie, right now it's Ronnie Rivers and Royce Freeman. Were the only two, that's it. I don't think Royce Freeman didn't do. He might have played some snaps, but he didn't have a touch or a target.
Part of me expected them to get a running back for Cam Akers. Like Dwayne McBride, now that we know that Minnesota was the mystery team, part of me would have thought that Dwayne McBride would have came back in the deal.
Yeah, but also, don't they just have him on their practice squad? They probably want to stash him.
Oh, I thought he got elevated. Well, you can steal from the practice squad.
Right. So there you go. Maybe they just steal him.
Speaking of other running backs, Brian Robinson. Where did I get that from? Brian Robinson of the Washington Red Football Commanders.
Yep.
He has been excellent through 2 weeks. Antonio Gibson has been effectively phased out of the offense, it seems, but they've been winning through 2 weeks. Does that matter to you? Where are you at, Brian Robinson?
That was the other guy that I wanted to put on the most wrong. I definitely missed the boat on Brian Robinson. I really thought Antonio Gibson was going to get a lot more work this year than what he's gotten. Robinson looks like a about as much of a bell cow as you can be in 2023. He's getting a lot of work. Bieniemy's got this team putting up some points. I did see a really funny one of Sam Howell making, one of his touchdown passes. It was a beautiful throw from the all 22. And it was like, look at this beautiful throw Eric Bieniemy had, being the Bieniemy system. Yeah, I mean, Brian Robinson so far this year is tied for 4th in carries in the NFL. McCaffrey, Henry, and Pollard are the only 3 in front of him. He's tied with Demont and James Conner. If he is going to get Demont and James Conner level carries this year, he's going to be a steal. Like, he is an RB2 that you hit on because you didn't have to do anything, or you didn't have to really pay for him. So he's a guy that I am happy to admit I missed on this year. Definitely did not think he was going to be getting the work. I just like Antonio Gibson's kind of my DeAndre Swift, where it's just like I think I let my wants get in front of, I just wanted it to happen so bad. I probably let it dictate my judgment a little bit, but I definitely did just not listen to anyone when it came to Brian Robinson. I was like, nope, Antonio Gibson's going to be the guy. Like, even if it's a split, he's going to be better with the touches. And right now I just like, yeah, okay, that's a guy I was wrong on. If he keeps getting this kind of work, he's going to be one of the steals of the draft. And I'm not saying he's like, not necessarily saying he's a league winner. I'm not saying he's going to get you 15 to 20 a week, but he's going to get you the kind of workload that you don't sit on your bench.
Yeah, I think he's in your lap every single week. And again, with all these running backs that are already down, I mean, when you do your rankings for this week, Tanner, I kind of expect Brian Robinson to be an RB1.
He is. Yeah, no, he's an RB2 for me still.
Is he an RB2 still?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think I have him down just because they're playing the Bills.
Okay, sure.
So I do have some matchups in front of him. Right now he's RB21.
Okay. With the Bills matchup, though, that's fair.
Yeah. If he had a better matchup, he's probably sitting between, I'd say, like 15, 18.
What about Raheem Mostert? He, through 2 weeks, has been the guy for a high-powered offense in Miami. He's been awesome. He's been great. And again, another guy, kind of like Robinson, you really get super late. And I think, was he going after Wilson before anybody got hurt?
I think so. I think in your standard redraft league, Mostert was like the last round. Was pretty much where he was going. My big thing with Mostert is I don't think he's the guy all year. Like, we haven't seen him hold up to a full workload, a full season workload.
So let me cut in real quick there, Tanner. Let me cut in on that one. Does that matter? Because look at the running back. Like, running back, shouldn't we treat it like who's the guy right now and then stash away those guys? But like, shouldn't we have a more emphasized value on guys who are the guy right now?
Yes. No, I'm not disagreeing with you there. I'm just saying I don't think he's going to sustain being a top 20 running back all season. Like, I think we're eventually going to turn a corner where either this backfield's going to get back to, kind of what it was last year, or what we kind of anticipated this year, where, we might go week to week, not knowing if this is the Jeff Wilson week or the Raheem Mostert week. Or, it doesn't seem like A-Chain is going to be making, like he's going to be part of that corner turn anytime soon. I still think second half A-Chain could get into this mix. I just don't think in the second half of the season, I'm not putting money on Mostert being this top 20 running back he is right now. If you have him on your roster right now, though, you are plugging him in every single. He's like Brian Robinson. He's my RB2 every single week. I don't even have to think about it. And, he's definitely buying a lot of time for me. That I guess that's kind of how I'm viewing him right now. He is buying time for me.
I think there's not a single running back in the NFL that I would put money down being a top 20 running back in the second half of the season. Because with the way that we've seen these injuries go, I'm just not sure you can count on any of them for that.
Yeah, no, I'm honestly, yeah. But yeah, right now, Mostert, yeah, he's a play him and forget him. guy. I have him right in front of Brian Robinson right now at RB20 this week. I do think it's important to note, I guess, kind of what I think week 1 playing the Chargers, not a great run defense, right? He didn't have that great of a week 1, did he? I can't remember now. As far as actually yardage goes, I just mean as far as yardage goes. He found the end zone twice.
He found the end zone once in week 1. Yeah, only 10 carries, only 37 yards.
Okay.
And then week 2 was the monster.
And then week 2, Bill Belichick was like, just light boxes all day. Like, look, you're not going to beat us with Hill and Waddle. You're going to have to run the ball on us. They should. And if they do, that's really going to help Mostert. But not everyone's going to do it. It's just not going to happen.
I think, as we have seen with the Joe Burrows and the Patrick Mahomeses over the last few years, I would not be surprised if that is something that we see quite a bit more of over the rest of the season.
But it's not like they beat them.
They did not, and not every team that did against the Chiefs or the Bengals beat them.
When this look was hit with the Chiefs lost back-to-back weeks to the Colts and Texans because of that look. Back in 19 or 2020?
I think it was 2020.
That first happened.
Wasn't it week 1?
I think it was 19. Because it was the year that wasn't that the year that Mahomes broke his kneecap?
No, I think it was 2020 because that's when then they kept on getting the red zone and Clyde kept on not being able to score.
Well, anyways, doesn't really matter. But
whichever, right?
Yeah. But no, like I said, if you have Mostert right now, you have a lottery ticket, keep playing him. But kind of the same thing as Kyron. Like if I can use him to upgrade in a position, I'm gonna do it. So I'm not buying him into full season, but yeah, I'm definitely keep playing him if I got him now.
Let's find some players that maybe we are buying into full season. It's Puka Nacua, baby. It's Pikachu. I choose you. Is he a league winner specifically once Cooper Kupp comes back?
Hakuna Matata that's kind of the tricky one, right? Is he going to be a league winner? He's not going to get 15 catches if Kupp is healthy in there. Like this week, I have Puka at wide receiver 11. Like last week, I was making the joke: is it going to be Puka or Garrett Wilson? Right? And I had them back to back. This week, they're not even close. Puka is a top 12 receiver moving forward as long as Kupp is not there. And when Kupp is back, I think we have the answer to this. We've seen Kupp and Robert Woods coexist on a field together. I don't see why Sean McVay won't be able to plug these guys both in. I think it's going to be Tutu that really has the drop off when Kupp is back. I don't think Puka is going to have the drop off. Again, he's not going to be a 20 and 30 point week or 20 and 30 point guy like he's been in full PPR. But Puka is going to be probably a wide receiver 2. I'm trying to think if he's going to be high or low, but I'm just calling mid wide receiver 2 right now, even with Kupp back.
So, okay, if you're saying we've seen them coexist before, that was pre Cooper Kupp being Cooper Kupp in all capital letters. With Cooper Kupp's massive year of 2021, Robert Woods, first of all, he only played 9 games, but he had 45 catches for 550 yards. Let's go ahead and loose math here. Let's call it 90 catches for 1,000. Is that kind of the full season style pace you could see for Puka? Is a 90 catch, 1,000 yard season?
I mean, you're not going to. So Kupp wouldn't have had, to me, the same historic season of what, like 145 catches or something like that?
Yeah.
Like Kupp could have been a 125 catch guy while Woods was a 80, 85 catch guy. We could have seen that offense. But I guess we'll never know. So I definitely think they can coexist together. Sean McVay's smart enough to be able to.
So
we just have to hope that when he's back, they don't try and spread it out with Higbee and Tutu and Puka and Kupp. Like it just needs to be hyper funneled. It just needs to be hyper funneled between Puka and Kupp, and I think that's very possible. So I am buying into Puka as a league winner.
In week 5, Cooper Kupp activated from IR. If you can get first round value for him, do you sell him? Just straight up 1 for 1. Let's say Jamar Chase continues to struggle. Do you straight up trade Cooper Kupp for Jamar Chase?
Like at week 5?
at week 5, or even today.
Yeah.
Right now today, would you trade Cooper Kupp for Jamar Chase?
Yeah, I had Kupp higher going into the season, so
you would trade away Kupp for Chase today.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I had it ranked preseason. I don't know why I should
well,
back
because
away
we've
from that.
seen the Joe Burrow injury. You're also 2 weeks away from getting Kupp, back on the other side, though. What about if you can get? What if somebody comes to you today and says Amon-Ra St. Brown for Cooper Kupp? You have Cooper Kupp, by the way.
What's my record? Because if I'm 2-0, that's a little tough. If I'm 0-2, absolutely. Like, give me Amon-Ra right now. If I'm 1-1, I don't know. Depends on what else I got. But I would definitely consider that. Yeah.
Let's go to the other Bengals. T. Higgins or Cooper Kupp?
No, keep Kupp.
AJ Brown?
Kupp.
Devontae Adams?
That one's interesting. So I have a league where I have Devontae in one redraft, and I thought about offering him straight up for Chase. Because again, I had them 5, 6, 7 spots apart preseason. Like, let me buy low on Chase with Devontae. And then I looked at Devontae's schedule, and I was like, man, this thing is juicy. Just because they were 3rd or 4th last year in the West, so they have a pretty light schedule, which makes me want to keep Devontae around. Now, what's it going to look like every single week with Jacoby Myers in there? I don't know. Was that more Denver trying to take Devontae away and it just opened up more for Jacoby? I don't know. That one's a little bit trickier for me. I might honestly just hold Devontae.
It's not guys we're talking about, so we don't need to go into it too much. I think Jacoby Myers can be really, really good with Devontae Adams still being like wide receiver 1 really good. Like, I think that he can just take all the other targets that Devontae doesn't get, but we don't need to go into that one. Let's move on to another league winner potential here. Your boy, your guy, all hail Tanner Ward on this one, and pretty much all hail every analyst except for Matt Mormann on this one. Although I came around. All right, let the record show.
Did you come around?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I came around by the preseason. I said the entire summer I had to see it, and I hadn't seen it, and then I saw it, and I think I ended up with him at like wide receiver like 15, and so yeah, I was right there where pretty much everybody else was. I mean, I think a lot of people. So
I wish I would have got him in my top 12.
Calvin Ridley is who we're talking about here. He looked amazing week 1. Week 2, a little more up.
Yep. Yeah, you froze up again there. Week 2. Yeah, week 2, he just got shut down by Ladarius Sneed. But yeah, he had a couple almost touchdowns.
So are you okay? So Calvin Ridley or Cooper Kupp?
I'll probably. Oh man, that one's tough. Honestly,
if you're 1-1 right now,
yeah. If I'm 1-1, I might do that. Of course, I would try and get something else thrown in there.
On which side?
Well, that's the thing. It's just like I don't. If you get a report back that says Cooper Kupp is 100% playing week 5, like he's back, then does that change anything for you? Kupp versus Ridley?
Oh, am I back? It was me.
Yeah. So
it's gonna be me every time.
If Cooper Kupp, if they're like he's 100% back by week 5, like he only went on it was a 2 to 3 week injury. We knew he's going to need at least a week to ramp up. He is full go week 5. Does that change anything for you for your perceived value of Cooper Kupp?
It puts me back to Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp and CeeDee Lamb. Then I think. Like he used to be Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, but I think the emergence of Puka is just enough to put me at him at like the CeeDee Lamb level.
Okay. Yeah, I would take Kupp over Lamb. For Ridley, gosh, that's a that's a tough one. But I mean, we talk about Puka with Kupp, but Ridley's got 3 guys there.
Just had 9 how many catches did Kirk just have?
Was it 10?
Yeah. Was it 10? Did you get double digits with it? Yeah.
Yeah, but then
Zay Jones
how good did Zay Jones look week 1?
Yeah.
And then I mean, Evan Ingram's better than Tyler Higbee.
And you can't forget any drive on any moment could end because Jacksonville tries to give the ball to Tank Bigsby and he gives it to the other team.
Yeah. I honestly, right now, as we sit here, September 20th at 9:30 at night, I think I might take Ridley. Ask me again in the morning, and I might take Cup. I don't know. That's one I think I'll flip flop on.
Well, let's move on to a guy who I know you're not going to change your mind on. That's Mike Evans.
Yeah,
Tell me
Mike
more
Evans.
about how much he sucks, Tanner. Tell
Mike
me.
Evans is definitely one of the
Do it.
guys that I got wrong, and so I wanted to touch on the Tampa Bay passing game. I think that's what I really missed on, was the Tampa Bay passing game. And for one, Baker's playing a lot better than what I anticipated. Baker's playing really well, and I just did not think that the amount of passing volume that they would have and Baker Mayfield was going to be able to support two wide receivers. And to me, target wide receiver number one should be Chris Godwin, which then makes Mike Evans wide receiver 2 in a low volume, low efficient offense. That is pretty much where I didn't want to have any Mike Evans this year. So far, right now, through 2 weeks, he is looking dang good. I'm not fully buying into we have just Mike Evans is going to be great again over the course of the season, but right now he's looking good. You can take the victory lap now. I just don't think it's going to last.
I think there's two big points I want to make with the Tampa Bay offense, and specifically with Mike Evans for part of it. Is number one, Mike Evans has looked good enough to say Tanner was wrong and that he's not cooked. I don't know if he's going to be great all season. However,
he's also got to play the NFC North.
Okay, I was going to get there. Hang on. I was going to get there with that. Actually, I had 3 points. I was going to get there. So, but my number one thing is Mike Evans is not toast, because we have seen veteran wide receivers look like Allen Robinson through 2 weeks, or no matter who the matchup is, look garbage, right? So, like, number one thing takeaway to me with Mike Evans is he is still very good. Like, because Allen Robinson did not have a single one of these games, right? Like, when you're cooked, you're cooked, and he's not cooked yet. Number two is correct. They have had 2 cake matchups. They managed to eat the cake, though. So anytime that they do have another cake matchup come up, eat the cake. Now, this week when they go play Philly, I'm maybe not eating the cake. But when they do have those easy matchups, I think you can trust that Buccaneers offense. Number 3 is me and you talked a lot about Tampa Bay pass volume. And I said I thought that they were going to be closer to the midpoint of the league, maybe even sniffing top 10-ish. You thought they were going to be like bottom 5 in pass attempts this year because of how much, with Todd Bowles wanting to run the ball, that kind of stuff. My side of it was they're not going to be good enough at running the ball to be able to do that. They are sitting right now at 18th in the league in pass attempts. And keep in mind, we're only 2 games in. All these numbers are very close. So, like, they're at 68 pass attempts right now. If they would have 5 more pass attempts, they'd be at number 11, right? If they had 5 less pass attempts, they'd be at 24. So, like, the numbers are very close right now. It kind of just comes down to a few plays each direction. But my point there being, I think I can confidently say they're going to be more in that mid-pack of pass attempts this season, not the bottom. So, like, to me, there's a lot of positives there because we didn't know if this Buccaneers offense was going to give you any usability, even in easy matchups. We didn't know, you didn't know, if Mike Evans was going to be just totally cooked and lose all of his abilities. And number 3, we didn't know the pass volume. And so I think you can feel good about all 3 of those things. For Mike Evans specifically, but for the Buccaneers as a whole, I think Baker is a streamable quarterback in his cake matchups. And I think Godwin's going to be just fine. Like, I think that they are, especially with where you draft these guys, they're worth it.
I am looking up where I had Tampa. So I had Tampa 28th in plays per game. And then, but I actually had them 19th in pass attempts.
They are actually 9th. Okay, 18th in pass attempts, though? That's right where they're at.
19th.
19th? Okay, close enough.
So, yeah, I mean, they're on pace to be where I had them. So
they're actually very high on the total plays. They're at tied for 9th.
Yeah, and that's where I missed out on the 2 offenses. I missed the biggest on, I think, were Indy and Tampa, and I just missed out on the volume. Like with Indy, the pace of play has just been like I didn't think they were going to try and run a lot of plays. And same thing with Tampa. I was not projecting them to run a ton of plays per game. That's automatically just going to bring volume down.
Mm-hmm.
But both of them are having a little quicker pace of play, and Indy's been very quick, actually. and they're also just throwing the ball more than Tampa, as I said, they're kind of where I thought they were going to be, I guess. They'll probably be higher than what I projected them for. Indy by a mile is going to be higher than I projected them for, and that's why we'll get to another guy here in a second.
Well, go ahead and
we're
talk
about
about
to
him
talk
here.
to him.
Let's talk about him here. Let's just throw together those two
Yep,
pieces.
it's Michael Pittman. That is a guy. Again, this is an offense I thought was going to be very slow, not run a lot of plays, and not throw a lot. When I projected this team out, I really looked heavy at Shane Steichen with Jalen Hurts 3 years ago now. 2 years ago. How long has that been? Where he basically just didn't throw the ball with Hurts. It was just they were they had a terrible record. Then they switched to just running the crap out of the ball, and they made the playoffs. That's the sample that I really focused on to project out this Indy offense. That's just what I thought. Anthony Richardson's pretty raw, it seems like, coming into the NFL. Let's use his legs early on. We'll develop him as a passer as the season goes and really open it up in year 2. They're just going for it year 1. They're just letting him rip. So yeah, I definitely missed out on Pittman. I mean, 10 targets week 1. What did he have week 2, even though he didn't have Richardson, throughout the second half? I think he got hurt in the first half. Pittman still finished with 12 targets week 2. So if he is just going to get this kind of target share, then he's going to be good this year.
I'm sorry. I just sorted by week 2 targets and I saw 20 at the top and I was like, oh, I must still be by full season numbers. My bad. Oh no, that's just Puka Nakua's 20 targets at the top.
Yeah.
Literally made me like 20 targets. Nobody had that in one game. Oh, yeah, that's right. Puka Nakua did.
But yeah, what are your thoughts on Pittman?
It's tricky. I think that he is going to maybe be it's hard to make the comparison because I thought they're so stylistically different, but like kind of what Hollywood was a little bit with Lamar in that 2019 season. Isn't this what we thought
Pittman was going to be last year? Just super high target volume in this Colts offense.
And it's super short stuff too that Richardson is throwing, which is kind of what you thought noodle arm Matt Ryan might look like. Yeah. Which is super short stuff all over the place. I do wonder if at some point defenses just thinking about what the Colts defense is at the moment. It's run the ball and short passes. Well, at what point do you just bring your Yeah. So at what point do defenses just bring everyone up and say, beat us deep, try it, and let's see what happens? I have to imagine there's going to be some adjustments being made. Also, by the way, I'm concerned about the Colts changing their offense a little bit for Richardson with like trying to reduce his hits because he is 2 for 2 on injuries.
But if they try and do that, isn't he just going to throw more quick passes, get the ball out of his hands quick, which could leave Pittman to be 8 to 10 targets every single week?
From a Pittman side of things, that's probably very good. Yes. Yeah. Definitely. And I think from Josh Downs' standpoint too, by the way, he could become a bit of a flex-worthy option at some point if this continues. Yeah. Tater, I think we go ahead and skip the bus. We talked about 2 of them already on the show.
Yep.
The other one that we had listed was Garrett Wilson, but we all know the story there. Now that Zach Wilson's at quarterback. So
we still had one more league winner that we should spend 30 seconds on at least.
Oh, Nico Collins. I forgot about Nico like I always do.
Yeah. I was pretty excited. I had Nico stashed in a couple leagues. He was like, I had to make the decision a lot because it was super late, and Nico and Romeo Dobbs were like back to back in ADP. And I had to choose between either one of them or I just got both in a couple leagues. And the ones that I did take Nico in, I was very happy. I also had to make the decision. They were the same price on DraftKings last week. And I went Nico in both lineups. And Nico and Josh Reynolds won me some money last week. That was pretty exciting because I did not play. I mean, I played Calvin Ridley in both those leagues as well, or both those contests. But those guys saved me, and Nico's just going to be very exciting this year, I think. CJ Stroud's thrown over 40 passes in both games. So Texans are not good, and they're just going to keep throwing the crap out of the ball. It looks like they're not worried about trying to, slow down the game for CJ Stroud. They're just going to get out there and let him rip. And Nico, 9 targets, 7 catches, 146 yards and a touchdown. When he gets a good matchup, Nico is a must start. And even in a tough matchup, he's probably still a wide receiver 3 in a flex. You know what's crazy is last week Nico had 9, Tank Dell 10, and Robert Woods 9.
Right. And part of that's because Dameon Pierce isn't getting the ball at all in the air. That's part of that too.
No, and Dameon Pierce, I do want to touch on a couple players I got right on, just because I feel like all I've done this episode is talk about players I've been wrong on. But Dameon Pierce was a guy I said all offseason, I just don't see where he's going to be good. Like, it's a new coaching staff. Last year, the reason Dameon Pierce was so good, Texans were still so bad, that coaching staff didn't care what the score was. They kept running the ball. And Dameon Pierce was the guy. Now, this new staff invested in another running back, even though sometimes that means nothing. Chase Edmonds, obviously. They can bring a guy in, it doesn't mean anything. But I've been a Singletary guy. You know this. I like Devin Singletary. They bring him in, and I just didn't think they were just going to keep pounding the rock when they're losing. And so Dameon Pierce seems to me like he's only going to be startable in games that they can compete in. And anytime they're facing good offense that's going to score points on him and force him to throw a lot, Dameon Pierce is just not going to be startable. But in those games, Nico Collins is going to be a must start. So Nico is very exciting to me, I think. Dameon Pierce, 2 thumbs down. Hope you didn't draft him. Hope you listen to the ADP.
And on a similar note, I think Tank Dell is definitely a guy to pick up for the end of your bench if you've got some space to it, because having those targets in week 2 as a rookie and seeing the situation unfolding as it is, I think there's a chance he becomes more and more involved in a pass-heavy offense as the season goes on. Real quick, 2 other guys that we definitely nailed, because you mentioned Rachaad White earlier. We were talking about you mentioned Rachaad White, Najee Harris, and Alexander Madison all bundled into one. And we were definitely right. They were all very inefficient and bad.
Yeah, to me, Dameon Pierce and Rachaad White were my 2 biggest busts. Those were the ones I was banging the drum the most on. Najee and Madison, I don't think those were really like big calls. I feel like a lot of people were kind of in the same boat with those, but I have 0 shares of any of those running backs we just talked about.
And
but
Rachaad did have a nice week too, but that was against the Bears.
Yep, and I have admitted on the game by game show, last week I had Dameon Pierce and Rachaad White as starts because of their matchup. I was like, if you drafted them, if you're stuck with these guys, this is the week to play them, because this is the only week you're going to get any production out of them. Now, even Dameon Pierce, I don't remember, did he do much?
No.
But yeah, Rachaad White, like, yeah, hopefully he can play the Bears a couple more times this year, because he might actually be productive. Sean Tucker is another name you might look to stash at the end of your bench too. But there are 2 guys that we were very right on.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It makes me so happy. 2 quarterbacks, because quarterbacks so far, if you invested in a top 8 quarterback, you're probably not the happiest right now with that pick, unless you drafted Justin Herbert, who's QB3 right now, or you waited for, I think he was ADP QB 11 or 10. But for me, he was in. Huh?
Were you talking about Cousins there?
Tua.
Oh, Tua, of course, our golden prince of the ADP. I was
getting around. The prince of the ADP, Tua Tagovailoa.
Our beautiful boy.
He was in my top 8 this year. I remember I moved him ahead of Trevor. That was a historic day. I'll never forget that day.
The day you became the Tua guy.
Yeah, I'll be laying on my deathbed. I'll remember, my wedding day, the inevitable birth of my first child, and the day I moved Tua into my top 8. Those will all be keystone moments in my life. And yeah, so far, like I said, Herbert's QB3, depending on your format, but in most of my leagues, I see him as QB3. Tua is going to be great this year. As long as he stays healthy, he's going to be great. We saw what he can do. We saw the week 1 performance. You see what he can do. He had one of the toughest matchups I think he's going to have all year, facing Bill Belichick, who, at one point in the game, I don't know how much they ran it, but at one point they were running 3 safeties.
Yeah.
So they were just like, you're not going to go over top. You're going to have to run the ball. And he still had a fine game. It wasn't great, but, he's going to have a great season. So I think we need to take a victory lap on those 2 guys.
I completely agree. They've both been awesome. And this quarterback situation has been interesting, because a lot of people, and to an extent, ourselves included, said the top 8 quarterbacks, right? Those are the guys to go get. I think for me and you both, we kind of were like, well, there's also Tua, and at one point Deshaun Watson, although I think we both backed off of that.
We both did. But by the time we got to draft season, I think we were both off Deshaun.
I didn't end up with him at all.
No, I have 0 shares. I think another thing with me trying to diversify lineups is I backed off on Tua a little bit because I was getting him in every early draft. And so those last like 2 weeks of the draft season, I wanted to diversify because I just had so much Tua. So I had a league where I made sure I got a Justin Herbert share, which is my home league. I got a Josh Allen share in my work league. I got a Jalen Hurts share in another one. And all of those, I'm like, God, I wish I kind of just would have waited for Tua, because what could I have grabbed, instead of Allen or
Richardson has been the other guy too, though, and we were both also very high on Richardson. I think he kind of took that Deshaun Watson spot for me. And that one's definitely panned out. But these top 8 quarterbacks. So first of all, let's talk about, to me, the big one in the room.
I don't really want to hit a first of all at an hour into the podcast. So
first of all, among the top 8, stock down for sure to me on Justin Fields, Joe Burrow, and Trevor Lawrence. Trevor, not quite so much.
Trevor, not for me, no. But
for sure for Burrow. Well, I think for me, the stock down just went to where you had him. I think I would now put like Richardson and Cousins and Tua above him now.
Not Cousins for me. I still think Trevor has that ability to be have a top 5 upside for a stretch this year.
I still think he can get there. I just think the volume of Cousins is getting me past him on that one. That's fair enough on Trevor. Let's talk about the other two, though, because Joe Burrow dealing with his calf. The Bengals have looked like complete poop show for the first 2 weeks. Okay, today you've got Joe Burrow. You get that trade offer, Anthony Richardson for Joe Burrow. Are you pulling that trigger?
4-point? I would think about it. 4-point, I would think about it. 6-point, no. I am not panicking on the Bengals. I'm not worried about them right now. I'm just gonna kind of hold. If that's my boat, I'm gonna sink with it. If that's what I'm on, but I'm kind of holding my Bengals right now. Sometimes you got to get through the tough times to enjoy the good times. So,
I would be fully right there with you. That calf does seem to be a major problem, though.
Yeah. What really scares you is Aaron Rodgers had a calf injury in the preseason.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's one thing I read, that it's like, well, when you have this kind of calf strain, the Achilles can always suffer later. So that part does worry me a little bit, because, man, if that happens with Joey B, then you're really tanking the stock of Jamar and T. Higgins.
My dynasty team goes down the toilet then, doesn't it? Where I get the triple stack going. The other guy, though, who I am raising up a very big red flag on, and it's not a droppable flag, but it is he lost the upside opportunity, is Justin Fields. Like, I think his rushing is always going to keep him as a fringe starting option for you. But when we were drafting him, part of why we were drafting him where we were drafting him was the upside opportunity. If I wanted to draft Dak Prescott, I would have just drafted Dak Prescott 8 rounds later than Justin Fields.
Yeah.
If I'm drafting for floor, I'm drafting that in round 10 when I'm drafting Kirk Cousins. When I'm drafting Justin Fields in round 5, part of the reason I'm drafting him is because I look at you and say, are you this year's guy? Are you this year's TD rate guy? Are you this year's guy who's going to take that step and be QB2? And I'm waving the red flag, the white flag, I guess. I'm surrendering the Justin Fields upside case. And at this point, I have a low-end QB1 where there might be an occasional spike week, but, Dak's going to have those too. And that's kind of where I'm at right now with Justin Fields.
For me, Fields, I was not drafting Fields in 6-point per passing touchdowns this year. I was only looking at him in 4-point. And if I have him in a 4-point, I am again going to hold tight with Fields, because I do think there can be adjustments made where if they just let him just start taking off with his legs, like this, the Bears are always going to be the Bears. Like that, they're just always going to be the Bears. Like, they can have something nice and they'll find a way to mess it up. If they just let Justin Fields go out and just start running around, that's what made him good last year. And if he just starts getting back to that, he is going to be worth it in a 4-point per passing touchdown. Now, is he going to get to that level where we thought he had that upside of, he was being drafted of like, hey, he could be QB1 this year.
Absolutely.
He could have that Lamar Jackson season.
Yep.
I don't think like that is out of the question, obviously. But can
And that's
he?
where I don't think he can be worth it, because where you
Yeah,
drafted him,
yes. But
that was in play.
at this point, that's sunk cost, right? Like once you
Yes.
get so far into the season, ADP doesn't matter anymore. So where you drafting him is just sunk cost. He's still, like you said, going to have spike weeks. I still think that his legs are going to give him a good floor. Once
Yeah.
he just gets back to doing what he's doing last year.
Again,
And
if I wanted to go to
when that happens, I think he's going to be just fine for fantasy. I hope he continues to be awful in real life just because I like to watch the Bears. You know what? I really hope the Bears find a way to win like 6 or 7 games this year.
enough to protect him for dynasty.
Well, yes, but also like I was thinking about this the other day. Don't you want all your division rivals to win like 6, 7, 8 games a year?
Oh, sure. Keep
Like
away from those high guys or
yeah,
high
you
picks.
never want your
Yeah.
division rivals to win 2 or 3 games in a year and get a top pick.
My life was a lot easier when the Bengals had Andy Dalton instead of just Joe Burrow. Right?
Yep.
Like, fair
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
For dynasty. Well, okay, let me ask you, let's take redraft for just a second longer here. 4-point passing touchdowns.
Yeah.
Tua or Fields?
4 point? I'm
4 point.
still going Fields. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I'm still going Tua.
Okay.
Tua.
Yeah.
Tua. Yes.
Me too.
Yep.
Fields or Richardson?
Richardson.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, Fields has definitely fallen down a tier for
Yep.
sure.
Yep. But for me, like if I paid for him on draft day, his ADP at this point is sunk cost, and I'm moving forward with him as my QB1.
If you also drafted, for whatever reason, if you had Justin Fields, you also drafted, let's call it a Jared Goff, a Dak, one of those kinds of guys, are you happy with the idea of trying to trade Justin Fields for a flex wide receiver, let's say, and then roll with Jared Goff?
I just think that Fields spike weeks are going to be better than your Goff and your Prescott spike weeks. So I'll probably just roll with it.
Okay. So you roll with the Fields.
Also redraft. We've seen this over the years. Redraft, it is not easy to trade a quarterback.
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
For dynasty purposes, are you kind of scared on Justin Fields' starting outlook for the years moving forward?
A little bit. I mean, I'm definitely not sitting here being super confident as him being my QB1 on a roster, you know. But also, what do? You can't move him right now because this is the point in dynasty where it's like, well, this is the lowest he's going to cost, or this is the lowest value he's going to have, unless obviously he loses his job. But at this point, it's like he's teetering that level where it's like, I don't want to trade him away right now because I don't want to trade him at a discount. I would almost rather hold on to him and just see what happens.
Yeah. Hope that he gets one of those spike weeks, you get somebody excited, and then make the deal at that point.
Well,
but
to me, if Justin Fields loses his job, I think there's plenty of other teams out there that would take a shot on him over their current quarterback situation. And then the other thing with me is I almost think the Bears have to get a top 1 or 2 pick to make that decision. Like they got to get Caleb Williams. I don't know about Drake May. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm this quarterback scout.
Right.
But to me, like I would rather take my 3rd or 4th year with Justin Fields than I would just take another quarterback out of North Carolina. That you've seen what happens when you take the 2nd quarterback overall in a draft out of North Carolina. That doesn't really go well for you.
I will just say though, they also have the Panthers pick. So
they
don't have to earn the 1 or the 2.
Oh yeah.
They can pretty easily go and get it.
But also the Cardinals have the Texans pick.
Right, correct. But I'm just saying it's pretty easy for them to go get that number 1 pick if they want to. Or 2.
Yeah.
You know, whatever they want to do there. We
could very well be this have like it could go Cardinals, Bears to kick off the 24 draft.
How exciting would that be? Wouldn't that be fun?
I really don't want the Bears to have 2 top 5 picks, but yeah. All right, we have went way long. I don't want to go over 45. We're an hour 10.
I figured this is what was going to happen. We haven't had a 2-man show in a couple of weeks. There was a lot of ground to cover. I mean, the last time we talked, who would have ever seen Puka Nacua being one of our main topics, right?
I mean, honestly, Puka Nacua was not a starter when we were talking. He was from
my guillotine league.
He like the last time me and you did an episode together, it was like, hey, this Puka Nakua guy, fun name. Maybe if you have a roster spot, add him.
I thought I was gonna be cursing his name after I'd get eliminated in the Guillotine League because I had to start Puka Nakua in week 1.
I did stash Puka in one Dynasty League before the season started. Very loaded team. I was like, I'll put him on the trade block and I'll just sell him off.
Is he on your taxi squad?
No, because my taxi was already filled. I decided to leave him on my roster in case he was serviceable with Cup out. I decided to stash some running backs instead on there.
So philosophically on Dynasty, last thing we'll talk about before we get out of here.
Okay.
Philosophically for a Dynasty team, if you had Puka Nakua on your taxi squad, would you activate him right now? And then you're dropping somebody off your roster though.
If I needed him, like
if you're a win now team.
So like in Dynasty of Ordinary, our Ordinary Gentleman League, if he was on my taxi, I would leave him on taxi unless I traded him away. Just because, I mean, I have that league's like Tyler Lockett, Chris Godwin. Those guys are all on my bench.
Right. Your team is almost as loaded as mine.
I think position wise, I think I'm more loaded.
I think that's fair.
You have the cornerstone at QB. That's where I lack.
And my running backs are not good and just got worse because of losing Nick Chubb.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so like in that instance, it was like I was gonna trade him and try and restock some draft picks, but at this point, maybe I just keep him.
Yeah. Would you trade him for a first? If
Depends
I offered you my first,
probably not your first. I don't want you to have him in that league.
Look, he'd be my wide receiver 6. So
yeah. I mean, that's pretty much he's like my wide receiver 6 or 7 right now. Well, I mean, just in order of depth in production.
Right.
I'm playing him this week. Like I'm gonna sit Godwin and lock it. And I don't remember who I just moved out of my starting lineup for him, but I'm gonna play him. So
all right. For president.
Are we ready to sign off on this bad boy?
I think we're ready to sign off.
Just if you're listening to this point, and if you listen at 1.2 times speed, that is the cheat code to podcast because it's not that fast. Like everything's still, you're able to still understand everything, and you're moving the podcast faster. This thing wouldn't be an hour 12.
That's right.
So, all right. Well, if you are still listening, again, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at ADP Dudes and the YouTube page. Subscribe, leave us a 5-star review. Tweet us your start sits. We would love to answer it. Keep an eye out. We'll have our rankings out, and the game by game preview will be out for Friday. So thanks all for listening to another episode of the ADP. We'll see you next time.